morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this live conversation around Women's Month. We're just going to wait 1 minute for 11 o'clock and then we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Happy Fake Monday, happy Tuesday. My name is Nwabisa Gage. I see you, Kheti, and I work at Edge Growth. And just quickly, Edge Growth is a business that works to support other businesses and helps them grow with the objective of creating impact. But that's not why we're here today. Today, we want to talk about Women's Month, and I'll be joined by a few of my colleagues to discuss just some reflections on Women's Day past and what it means for us today. So a quick run through of this chat. We will talk about Women's Day and what it means to us. And then at the end, we will open it up to everybody joining. So if you would like to join us and chat and have a conversation or any reflections on this conversation that we're having, then you're more than welcome to do so. So by way of introduction, we're talking around Women's Day and Women's Month and what that means to us. And I know a lot of us are aware of the history of Women's Month, but just to catch us up, we commemorated Women's Day yesterday, and we were talking about and thinking about the 1956 march, where plenty of women were, around 2,000 women actually, were marching to the union buildings and marching against the past laws that were enacted in the country to further entrench the system of racism and terrible things that we know in our country's history. And in reflecting on that, I just was thinking about what the significance is for us today. And I thought about two things. The first was the complementary and collaborative nature of problem solving, just when we're wanting to solve big problems and wanting to work on important things. It's important that many hands put their hands to the shovel, so to speak, and work to do it. So if we look at the Women's March in 1956, there were more than 20,000 women across racial lines coming together to work together to help upend an unjust system in South Africa. And then the second thing that I was reflecting on was just what it means to have integrity, or what it means to fight and for what is right and do the right thing. And sometimes it comes at a personal cost to you. And that's a good thing to want to emulate. It's a good thing to want to work for the right thing, and it's a good thing to want to work hard for the right thing. So that's going to be the conversation that we're having today. Please feel free to join. I see a lot of people have already said hi. Hi Nompumelelo. Hi Swangile. Hi Nabila. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We hope you have a wonderful time with us, and please feel free to interact with us towards the end. So like I mentioned at the beginning, we will be joined by a number of our colleagues. And the first person to join us now is going to be Mulefe, who works as the office manager at Edge Growth. And she will be just helping us talk through and think about some of the questions that we prepared for this conversation. Hi, Dewey.
Hi, Nwabisa. How are you this morning?
Doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Great, thanks. Happy Women's Month. Happy belated Women's Day. Yes.
Thank you. Happy Fake Monday. It's such an interesting day, right?
I actually forgot that it's actually a Tuesday today and not a Monday. Yeah.
When I was planning my day, I wrote Monday, and then I was like, no, Tuesday.
Makes the two of us, yeah.
Just a quick one. So why do you feel that it was important to start seeing significant shift of women's roles in business from pink collar to white collar roles? Do you mean?
Sure. Nwabisa, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Happy Women's Day to everyone who's just joined in. And yeah, basically, it was significant because historically, women were predominantly in lower skilled positions that are so-called the pink collar positions. You know, those positions are your lower skilled positions with less education and also just less paid as well. So, for example, like your secretaries, your cashiers, your waitresses, you know, those are what we call the pink collar positions. But then now, when as we move to the pink collar, I think the the women were discriminated then to be in white collar positions. Those positions are obviously mostly were male dominated, and also obviously they're just opposite of pink collar, which more skilled and more education in higher executive, you know, positions, and also higher paid, you know. And also what you mentioned earlier about the women who marched to the union buildings. I think the ladies, such as your Helen Joseph, such as your
Lillian Ngoyi.
Lillian Ngoni, you know, Albertina Sisulu, they fought to bridge the gap between pink and white, you know. I think it's one of they fought for a lot of things when they went to the union building, but this is also just, you know, one of the things that they fought for as women, to say that, you know, there was this saying that women belong in the kitchen, you know, so that means
I
we are
mean,
meant
women
to
can
cook.
choose to be in the kitchen. I think to what you're saying, what's important is like what was important for me is there shouldn't be prohibitions from women occupying these white collar positions, right? So
Of
if you
course.
choose to be in the kitchen, then more power to you. We need to eat. Eating is good. But I think what is important is just realizing how opening up those options and those opportunities actually matters, and we shouldn't be
Yes.
restricting women. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. I agree with you. And to take it further, I'm just looking at as to where we come from and where we're going generally. You know, as a country, we I feel like we gradually going there, but we're not there. You know, in terms of female dominance in higher positions, because you find in big corporate companies, you still find male dominated higher positions. You know, males are still dominating those kind of positions, you know. But when you look at the history and where we come from to where we are, we've closed down the gap, you know. So it's basically for us as women to just stand together, you know, and through this movement, I call it a movement because it's not stopping, you know, until we feel we've gotten to a place that women and female are more comfortable and are in those white collar, so-called white collar positions.
And I guess just in closing, then, Jones, why do you think it matters that women are in these white collar positions versus pink collar? Why is it important?
I mean, it's important because I mean, initially, women were secluded because it was like they did not have like more education and they were not skilled. But now it's important because we find more women who are more educated, who are skilled. You understand what I'm saying? So it's quite vital and, you know, important to bear that in mind, that, you know, it's not only men who are educated, you know, we also as women are pretty much, you know, educated and stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Dumi. I appreciate you taking the time to join us. If you have any final thoughts, now's your chance.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to say that I'm thankful of Edge Growth as well. I'm personally was say pink collar. I've moved from being a secretary to being an office manager, which is pretty much which is pretty much a middle manager's role. So I'm happy to say that Edge Growth is also, you know, involved in shifting from, you know, those like perspectives, you know, that people have. So big ups and thank you so much. Thank you,
Thanks, Dumi. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I do think that just one thing from Dumi's conversation she said was the idea that we shouldn't be prohibiting women from joining these positions and women being part of these conversations, which I really appreciate. What we don't want to do is we don't want to prohibit. We want to have access to all these opportunities. And I think another important thing is just the options of mobility and the choices that women make and the validity of these choices, right? Because there are many decisions women make for different reasons. And so it's important that we're able to do all of this stuff. So next up, we're going to have Praksha. Praksha works as a junior project manager for the Growth Tracker, and she will also be joining us to have this conversation. And I think one of the things that I just want to ask Praksha is around challenges that women have experienced in this. Hey, Praksha.
Hey, Nwabisa. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
You're fine. You're fine. How are you doing? Happy Tuesday. Happy Women's Month.
Happy Tuesday. Happy Women's Month to you too. It's so nervous. I've never been done a live video, but I'm doing good.
Okay. So, quick one for you is what are some of the biggest challenges that you think are facing female entrepreneurs or women in leadership positions in business, and how do you think ESD policies can be supportive in eradicating those? Big question.
Yeah. To be specific, right, from my personal view, I have like two maybe. The first one would be work-life balance. I think it's really hard. I know it really doesn't apply to women, but it does apply to both genders. And it's a great deal because, you know, being a woman, we've come so far. We've already in high positions in most companies, and it's good. We've made a stand, you know, a stamp on our womanhood, our woman's society. So work-life balance is a big one. And also I think another one that will sort of, yeah.
So are you saying that work-life balance is one of the challenges that women are facing as women in leadership or women in businesses? Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then leading with those two would be fear of failure. You know, it's just going in line again because, you know, we've worked so hard as women to get where we are, and we have this sort of status of this is how we got here, and we're strong. And then, you know, people have this concept of, oh my God, if I don't do this properly, something's going to happen. I'm going to get affected by that. So those two things, one is a work balance, and the other is basically a professional, a personal thing that you feel. You know, everybody fears failure, and yeah. So I think those two are what would be my personal things that women would challenge, you know, face challenges with, and maybe trying to incorporate, which I love working at Edge, is the flexibility of working hours, you know, that thankfully in COVID we have sort of like a test run of how we can work remotely and, you know, figure things out, which I think it's a great, and especially moving with tech.
Sorry, and I think it's pretty awesome that COVID has accelerated and changed the way that we think about work, because now what you're finding is, oh, people don't necessarily need to be in the office to be productive. Who would have thought? You know? Yeah.
So that is a big one, maybe be more flexible. And another one would be sometimes companies work on how many hours you're in the office or how many hours you're working. Maybe focus on being more productive rather than the focus of hours. And a
Yeah.
big one would be having like regular meetings to discuss workload. So you give some sort of empathy towards your employees. So yeah, those are the two big challenges, I think. And then the implementations would be the regular workload being discussed, flexible hours, and taking breaks. Breaks is really important.
I mean, I must think that like one of the things that I do appreciate, there's a few things. I think I read a book that was talking about how we're in this culture of burnout and we're almost slaves to this idol of productivity where being busy is almost a symbol of your worth. And that created this perverse thing where people are afraid to rest, people don't want to take breaks, and people just want to be seen as doing, And so that's,
100%.
and I think COVID, to be honest, has also helped shine a light on that and be like, oh, you can work relatively hard and still have right priorities and balance and rest. And that helps you be more productive. The human body needs rest. Who would have thought? But like to what you were saying around age growth, I recently got married, and so that's kind of created a shift in my life and priorities and the things that matter to me. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this company is the fact that I would work from home 2 days out of 5, even before COVID, because we have this flexible working scenario. And that allowed me to run errands, to do the things that I wanted to do, and to just be a human and focus on life and the things that are important to me while still being productive at work. And I think that's something that in general as business we probably need to get better at. Realize that employees, and now since we're talking about women specifically, have responsibilities. They are full human beings. They have responsibilities outside of work as well. And to have work be part of your life and not this all-consuming giant that just everything revolves around is actually quite important.
Yes, I think the main point there, Nwabs, is to just realize that you're human and you do need to take these certain breaks or do certain things because you need it, right?
Yeah. And so the final part of the question was, do you have any thoughts around how ESD policies specifically could be more supportive in helping eradicate some of these challenges that you've mentioned?
ESD, like I said, for me, I think it just starts with the culture, maybe adjusting the culture in what you are working at, because culture is a big point. And just maybe change those certain things about what you do in the company, how often you have like staff welfare within your company, those meetings. That would be my main point with ESD.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thanks, Praksha. Let me let you get back to the rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining.
I think what's actually like super that we're having with Praksha is just thinking about employees and women as people and having a balanced view of what it means to be successful and productive in your work is actually super important. I am now joined by Nabila. Hi, Nabila, who is a business development solutions specialist. Nabila, happy Women's Month.
How are you, Nwabs?
Keeping on.
That's good. Well, we can
Great.
do.
Nav, so just taking a minute to reflect on edge growth and what we do specifically. Amongst the businesses that we support, what industries or sectors have you seen doing well in the area of women-led or women-owned businesses? And where do you think there's still room for improvement?
Yeah, cool. Good question. And firstly, happy Women's Month to all of the women that are watching. I've seen you sharing your love on the live, so thank you for that. So I think to answer the question, let's take a step back, okay? And to frame it, let's just have a little bit of stats that gives us an idea of what the situation is out there. So there's a survey called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, and what it does is that it surveys, how many people are starting businesses each year. Okay, and so if you look at the most recent stats, it shows that actually 13 out of 100 men start businesses, and when you compare that to women, it's 9 women out of every 100 are starting businesses. So that's a headline stat that shows you, firstly, women are still on the back burner when it comes to starting businesses. Okay, but now
does the survey, sorry, maybe that's your next point. Does the survey get into the whys of that?
Yes. So it eludes the whys, but I think the next stat is even more important and shows deeper what the situation is. So remember, when it comes to businesses, the reason behind why you're opening up that business is important. But what these stats show is that a higher percentage of women actually start businesses because they have no other choice. Either they can't find a job, or they just, that's their last resort. So I think the stats are like 34% of women actually start businesses because they don't have any other option, versus 18% of men. But then if you delve deeper, and you actually see that 85% of men start businesses because of an opportunity that they have. And let's face it, businesses that are started because there's an opportunity out there is more likely to create wealth than those started where there's a need for it. Because when you start a business out of a need, you're actually saying, I'm starting a business to survive. And
that's very...
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
That's very interesting, because I read stats that said something similar actually along developed countries, that there's a lot of rates of people starting businesses and getting into entrepreneurship in the developing world, but it's more subsistence based. Whereas in the developed world, you have more people starting them because of opportunities. And that also means that the nature of the business that you're starting is probably going to be very different, right? Because if it's subsistence based, you're not looking towards growth, you're not looking towards innovation. What you're worried about is, does this help me live my life? Does this help me pay my bills, food on the table, clothes on my back? That's very interesting.
And remember, in an economy that doesn't grow more than 2%, you're actually saying that I'm just starting this business so that I can pay school fees. I can, like you're saying, put food on the table. Now, if you look at, to your question, if you look at the types of businesses so when you have a need, when you're starting a business from a needs perspective, you're actually saying, okay, we're going to start a business that we can do very easily. That's why most women-led businesses currently, it's changing. The landscape is changing, but most women-led businesses are actually in your catering, in your services in your services industry, in the catering industry, providing that kind of service because it's led out of a need. I need to start this business. Now, and as we move on, it's changing. And to answer your question, we see that in a lot of industries like your petrochem, which is oil and gas, there's a lot of women-led businesses. We have some amazing women doing amazing things in running fuel stations and engineering businesses, constructing roads. We then have a lot of women in the IT space, which is, so remember, in these industries, there's a lot of barriers to entry for any person going into the industry, but there's even more barriers to entry for a female who needs to navigate a predominantly male-based industry and try to actually get business. So if you speak to a lot of our female entrepreneurs, they'll tell you we have the added complexity of actually trying to navigate this more male-dominated space and trying to get contacts and trying to get contracts as well. So we see a lot, but the good thing is we see a lot of uptake in the industries like IT, construction, engineering, oil and gas, but there's still a long way to go. And
so speaking to the long way to go, are there specific sectors where we're seeing larger gaps than most? And what do you think can be done to help close that gap?
Yeah, so definitely there are sectors where it's a bit more difficult to navigate because of like the complexity of it, more so the access that women have towards in these industries. So let me start with what can be done. And you know, your earlier question was enterprise and supplier development. How can it be used to actually help women or further the cause of women? Now, enterprise and supplier development is to empower Black-owned businesses, but there is within the policy, there's also you know, accommodation made for Black woman-owned businesses. I think where ESD needs to start is actually start increasing the recognition and the weight for Black woman-owned businesses, so that it kind of empowers them to start businesses, knowing that there is help through this structure. What also needs to be made more easy is actually the access to finance for women, because remember, if you look at, you know, just the physiological makeup of women, they will try, as women, you'll try to figure out a solution on your own without anybody's help. And then, you know, until you reach the last part and you're like, okay, no, I need to figure out a way in which I get funding into my business or an investment into my business. But more often than not, that's too late. So women need access to more understanding funding, but bring on investors who can help scale and grow that business. Okay, there's also a need for education and training, but I think there is a need for more incorporative incubators that allow or have a focus on what are the challenges that women face in starting and running sustainable, scalable businesses. Because I think we don't want to run, you know, these small businesses. We actually want to run businesses that are revenue generating over 10 million, over 100 million. Those are the type of businesses we want. And in order to achieve that, we need to listen to what women want. And I'm sure within COVID, you can see what women leadership can actually do for a nation, and so imagine what it can do for a country, for a business. So the industry.
Quick one, Nwabisa, just on a time check. You have about a minute or so. What's the very last thing that you think is important to bring to bear on this specific topic?
Yeah, so I think on this specific topic, we're on the right path. I think we just need to collaborate more. We need to be more inclusive, and we need to listen more to what the actual need is, and then meet that need with the right kind of support, with the right kind of skills, and then the right kind of access to markets, so that we can start building companies that are led by women and owned by women that start generating generational wealth. Because that's how you actually measure whether a business is successful or not. So, and I think ESD is one of the ways in which we can do it.
Yeah, very, very helpful and very informative. Thank you, Nwabisa. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you. Welcome. Bye.
Cheers. Yeah, that was really, really helpful and super informative. I think I didn't realize Nwabisa had shared. If anyone would like to join us in the last 3 minutes and have any reflections or thoughts, please feel free to send your request and we can join you and have a conversation with you live. And if not, then we'll just wrap up and just thinking about what Nwabisa was talking about around support. Isn't it amazing that in a lot of things, collaboration is how we actually move things forward, right? And just being intentional and deliberate about understanding the problem you're trying to solve, and therefore what support is appropriate. When we think about women in business, when we think about, for instance, our mission, which is creating jobs, it's very important to pick tools that are fit for purpose versus trying to kind of shoe in anything that looks like it could work, but actually we haven't been intentional and thought about it. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's anybody who wants to join us on this live. So first of all, thank you to everybody who's joined so far. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all the love and the hearts. Appreciate it. I see you, Linky. I think just a final thought is to reiterate kind of how I started this, which is to say the nature of problem solving, especially big problems, is collaborative, and it's important that we're working together and pooling resources to solve problems. And the second thing is it's important to do the right thing and act with integrity. So in our spheres of influence and in the places where we have power and influence and can make active changes, it's important to show up with integrity and do the right thing, even if that comes at a personal cost to you. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Women's Month. Cheers.